referencing these equations throughout the lab. Now when I look at these, instead of output and input, you see I talk about the object and me. So when I'm talking about me, that's when I'm pulling on something, how difficult or easy it is. When I'm talking about the object, I'm talking about how much the object, how much mass it has, how much force it's pulling with. Okay? So in the lab, we're going to be calculating different mechanical advantages for different machines. And here's something to note. A mechanical advantage that is large makes the job easier. Okay? So the bigger the mechanical advantage, the easier the job becomes. Okay? So if we have a mechanical advantage of 4, that's making the job easier than if the mechanical advantage was 2. Okay? The other thing that I like to make sure people note here is the difference between actual and ideal mechanical advantage. So actual is how much we record in the lab, okay? When we're testing different things, how much advantage we are getting. Ideal refers to if there was no friction, if everything worked perfectly, if our tools could measure perfectly, what would I get? Okay? So this is what would I get, this is what do I actually get. And we find that there's a difference sometimes. So I'm going to guide you through the lab now. I'm going to take you to the different stations and describe them. At each station you're going to make 2 different simple machines. Okay? For the first one, you're going to create 2 different levers. And we're going to make these levers using meter sticks and objects. And we're going to change the location of the fulcrum. So fulcrum is a newer word. It's the middle point that it bends around. Okay, so the fulcrum is also called the pivot point. So this is going to be station 1 over here. And I'm going to show you the setup of it right now so that you can see how I would do this one. So if you need to stand up in order to see, feel free to do that. I'm going to set this up so that my object, my book, is on one end. And on the other end, I'm going to have this piece of string because this is what I'm going to pull down on. Okay? So, over here, this is the setup. This is where I'm pulling down the me. This is the object. Okay? So, there's 2 different measurements I'm going to take to find my ideal mechanical advantage. Okay? The first one is the fulcrum to the object. So to measure the fulcrum to the object, I'm actually going to use inches on these. I've got set up wrong. I'm going to measure from the pivot point to the center of the book. Does that make sense? So from the pivot point, the fulcrum, to the center of the book. And in this case, that is 19.5. So I would put down fulcrum to the object, 19.5. You're going to make your own, so you don't need to put that down right now. Then I'm going to measure fulcrum to me. Fulcrum to me is 15 inches exactly. Okay? Okay, then I can calculate my ideal mechanical advantage by using the formula that they have here. So ideal is the length of the fulcrum to me, and we want it as a fraction then, because it's actually going to be easier than if it's a decimal if you write it as a fraction, okay? Divided by the length of the fulcrum to the object. So then it just becomes a division problem. Now before you make your second lever, you're also going to look at how much force you actually use here. So to do the force, you're going to do 2 things. First, you're going to weigh the book just by itself, okay? So you're just going to take the book and stick it in the bag. Like we were just doing, okay? To find the force. Then you'll write down the force of the object alone. Then we're going to find the force that it takes to lift this. So I'm putting it back where it was, and I'm going to lift it by pulling down. And the little station marks generally give hints of how to do this. So I'm going to pull down, and when the book leaves the table, I'll record the force. So you'll have to kind of get down low to see that. Does that make sense? Okay. Then after you do it the first time, you're going to change where the pivot is, and you're going to start the whole thing again. Okay? So that's station 1. Let's turn the page, and we're going to look at station 2, which is over at this table. Station 2, you're going to do the same thing, except this is set up a little bit differently. So the pivot point is going to be just resting on the table here. Okay? And my book is going to be in the middle, and my pivot is going to be on the end. So what we're going to do here is, like before, measure the pivot to the center of the object, measure the pivot to where I'm pulling up, put the book in the bag to find the mass, the force of the book, and then lift up to find the force of me, the force I'm pulling up with, okay? Okay, so that's station 2. For this one, you're going to change the location of the object, so you might underline the word object when you make the second lever. Number 3, again, a lever. This one is in the back here. Oops, I should leave this with this one. Okay. Number 3 is back here. And this one is different because here, I'm going to pull up in the middle. Okay. So my pivot point's here. My object's at the end here. And I'm pulling up in the middle, right? So that's how that's different. Again, you're going to change the location of the object, with this one, for your second lever. So you might underline change the location of the object. Okay, turn the page to station 4. And station 4, you're going to make 2 inclined planes. This is over here. And you're going to make 2 different planes by making it different heights, okay? So this might be your first plane, and you might later take some books out to make a second plane, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to be using meter sticks to measure 2 different pieces here. So if you look at the board, it says measure the length, so that would be the length of the ramp compared to the height, okay? And you do that for each plane. We're going to be pulling this up it, and so as you can imagine, the force of the object is just if this is hanging, okay? Where force of me is if I'm dragging this up. So that's station 4. Station 5 is over here with pulleys, and I will guide you through this one group by group because pulleys are a little bit different. Okay? So you probably have time for you to explore one station right now. Please work in groups of 3 or 4 like you have been. So if you're by yourself or missing someone, join together with someone else, and pick a station to start at. It takes a little getting used to, but I'll come around and help. Thanks.